Carrying a gun does something strange to people. It makes them feel safer, and that feeling is exactly the problem nobody warns you about before you ever clip a holster on for the first time. The moment that holster clips onto your belt, your brain quietly checks a box marked protected and stops paying attention to everything else that actually keeps you alive. The belt holding it up, the holster covering the trigger, the training that determines whether your hands know what to do when adrenaline shows up uninvited, and everything you rehearsed calmly at the range suddenly feels impossible to remember. Most people carrying right now aren't actually prepared. They just feel prepared. And that gap between feeling and being is exactly where real trouble finds them when they least expect it. Today, we're covering 9 mistakes that quietly turn a prepared carrier into an easy target, starting with the one hiding in your closet right now and ending with the one that can cost you everything, even if you did absolutely nothing wrong with the gun itself. Let's get into it. Number 9. A belt that can't do the job. A pound or two of loaded steel and polymer riding on a flimsy department store belt is asking for a problem you haven't noticed yet. A regular dress belt is built to hold pants up, not to support a holstered firearm all day without sagging, twisting, or rolling outward. That sag does 2 things, both bad. It makes the gun print through your clothing far more than it should, and it turns your draw into something slow and unpredictable exactly when speed matters most. A genuine gun belt uses a stiff, reinforced core, usually nylon or a rigid polymer, that distributes weight evenly around your entire waistline instead of letting it all hang off one spot. Here's the simple test. If you can pinch the top and bottom of your belt together and it folds easily, it isn't built for this job. The belt is the foundation everything else sits on, and skimping there undermines every other good decision you made buying the gun and holster themselves. Number 8. A holster that can't protect you. Buying a genuinely excellent firearm and dropping it into a $5 nylon pouch is one of the most common ways carriers quietly sabotage themselves. A cheap holster often lacks the structural rigidity to stay open after you draw, which means you're fighting the holster itself trying to reholster safely instead of focusing on what's actually happening around you. Worse, soft or poorly molded materials can actually collapse inward against the trigger guard, creating a genuine risk of an unintended discharge while the gun is sitting right there on your hip, doing nothing wrong on its own. A holster worth trusting your life to is built from quality Kydex or thick reinforced leather, molded specifically for your exact gun model, with retention that clicks or locks the gun in place so it stays put even if you're running, falling, or in a physical struggle. If your holster costs less than a casual dinner out, there's a real chance it's going to fail you at the exact moment. Failure isn't an option. Number 7. The nervous habit that gives you away. New carriers develop a tell almost universally, and almost none of them realize they're doing it. Constantly patting your hip or tugging at your shirt to check that the gun is still there feels subtle from the inside, like a private habit nobody else could possibly notice. From the outside, to anyone actually paying attention, security professionals, trained observers, and yes, criminals looking for exactly this pattern. Before they choose a target, it's about as subtle as holding up a sign. This habit comes from a simple lack of trust in your own gear, and it's one of the clearest signals experienced eyes use to spot a carrier in a crowd. The fix is building genuine confidence in your equipment. A properly fitted holster on a genuinely stiff belt isn't going anywhere, and the more you actually carry, the less you'll feel the urge to check. If something does shift and genuinely needs adjustment, handle it privately. A restroom, your car, anywhere away from public view, rather than announcing your setup to an entire room. Number 6. Training that never leaves the range. Standing still in a climate-controlled building, shooting at a target that never moves and never shoots back, teaches you almost nothing about defending yourself in an actual confrontation. Most carriers have never practiced drawing from concealment under real clothing, clearing a malfunction one-handed, or moving while engaging a threat that isn't standing perfectly still waiting for you. Under genuine adrenaline, fine motor control degrades fast, and you fall back entirely on whatever's actually been drilled into muscle memory, not whatever you think you'd probably do in the moment when it actually counts. Dry fire practice at home costs nothing and builds real skill over time. A single class that introduces genuine stress into your training does more for your actual readiness than another year of comfortable range sessions ever will. This isn't just advice for beginners either. Elite-level shooters train constantly specifically because these exact skills fade fast without regular use, and assuming you're the exception to that is its own kind of mistake. Number 5. Dressing like the gun isn't there. Wearing tight fabric that outlines every contour of your gun defeats the entire purpose of carrying concealed in the first place. This is called printing, And once every person in a grocery store checkout line can trace the outline of your grip, you're not concealed anymore. You've become the most visible potential target in the room, which is precisely the opposite of what concealed carry is supposed to accomplish. The fix is dressing around the gun rather than forcing the gun into an outfit that was never built to hide it. Slightly looser tops, patterned fabric that breaks up shadow and outline, darker colors that soften harsh edges, and genuine layering with a light jacket or an open shirt over a base layer all help enormously. If you can't move naturally throughout your day without the gun poking through your clothing, that's not a clothing problem to accept. It's a signal to change your wardrobe approach or reconsider how you're actually carrying. Number 4. Carrying only when it feels necessary. Deciding you only need your gun for trips to a rough part of town is a logic trap that falls apart the moment you actually think it through. If you genuinely knew where trouble was going to happen, the obvious answer would be avoiding that place entirely, gun or not, rather than treating the gun as a substitute for good judgment about where you go. Real danger doesn't check your schedule or your zip code before showing up, and treating carry as an occasional accessory for perceived high-risk situations misses the entire point of consistent preparedness in the first place. This same category includes off-body carry, a gun tucked into a purse, a backpack, or a glove compartment, which sounds convenient until you're separated from that bag for even a moment during an ordinary errand. A stolen purse means a stolen gun, and a locked glove box means a gun you genuinely cannot reach in the seconds that actually matter. The habit worth building is simple. Carry on your body from the moment you get dressed until the moment you go to bed, every single day, so it becomes an automatic part of your routine rather than a decision you make and remake constantly. Number 3. Treating your carry gun like jewelry. Nobody would go years without an oil change and expect their car to run perfectly. Somehow, plenty of carriers do the exact equivalent with the gun they're trusting their life to. Your carry gun lives against your body every day, surrounded by pocket lint, sweat, dust, and skin oils that all work their way into the action over time whether you notice it happening or not. Sweat specifically is brutal, since the salt content genuinely corrodes even quality finishes given enough time, eventually affecting how smoothly a trigger or sight actually functions when you need it to move without hesitation. A quick weekly inspection, checking for debris, confirming holster hardware hasn't loosened, catches these problems long before they become a real reliability issue you discover at the worst possible moment. Ammunition needs the same attention. Moisture and temperature swings genuinely degrade primers and powder over months of being carried against a warm body every day. Rotating your carry ammunition every few months, shooting the old rounds and loading fresh ones, confirms your primers are still reliable instead of just hoping they are. Number 2. Showing up without a real backup plan. A single magazine and a confident attitude are not a plan. They're a hope, and hope is a poor substitute for preparation when things go wrong. Mechanical failures happen. Missed shots happen, especially with a heart rate spiking under real stress. If your gun malfunctions or the fight isn't over after your first magazine, the spare sitting on your dresser at home does you exactly zero good. Carrying a backup magazine isn't about needing more ammunition specifically. It's about having options when your first plan doesn't go as expected, which, in a real confrontation, it frequently doesn't. The other half of this mistake gets overlooked constantly, and it might matter more than the ammunition question entirely. More people die from blood loss than from the initial injury itself in violent encounters, a statistic that surprises most people who've never actually looked into it. Carrying a gun without carrying a compact trauma kit, a tourniquet, and some gauze at minimum means you're prepared to create a wound, but not prepared to stop one, including your own if things go sideways in a way you didn't expect. That same kit is honestly far more likely to be used on a car accident victim or a workplace injury than in an actual defensive shooting, which makes it one of the highest value, lowest cost additions to your daily carry setup that almost nobody thinks to make. Number 1. Not knowing the law wherever you actually are. Believing your rights alone are the only permit you need is one of the fastest paths to a felony charge and consequences that follow you for the rest of your life. It doesn't matter what you personally believe the law should say, and it doesn't matter how confident you feel about your own reading of the situation. What matters is what the officer and the judge in that exact jurisdiction say the law actually is on that day in that specific location. Plenty of responsible owners get comfortable with their home state's rules, then cross into a state that doesn't recognize their permit, and suddenly face serious legal exposure over what feels like nothing more than a technicality. Checking reciprocity maps and understanding exactly where you're legally allowed to carry, especially before traveling anywhere outside your usual routine, isn't optional homework you can skip because you're in a hurry. It's part of the responsibility that comes with carrying it all, full stop. Carrying into a restricted location, a federal building, a school zone, anywhere posted or prohibited because you genuinely didn't see the sign doesn't hold up as an excuse in court. Real responsibility means knowing your own local and state law well enough that ignorance never becomes the reason you lose your rights permanently. 9 mistakes. 9 ways a genuinely well-intentioned carrier quietly becomes their own biggest liability without ever realizing it happened until it was already too late to matter. None of these have anything to do with which gun you chose or how much money you spent on it at the counter. Every single one comes down to habits, preparation, and honest awareness of your own gaps. The things that never show up on a spec sheet but matter more than almost anything else once a real situation actually unfolds in front of you. Fixing even a few of these puts you meaningfully ahead of the average person walking around with a gun and a false sense of security they've never actually tested. Hit that like button if this called out something you genuinely needed to hear today. Subscribe for more honest breakdowns like this one, because staying sharp on this stuff isn't a one-time lesson. Drop a comment telling us which of these 9 you're guilty of, because if you're being honest with yourself, at least one of them probably hit a little too close to home. Stay safe, stay prepared, and close the gap between feeling ready and actually being ready before life forces you to find out the difference.